Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Eyes of Halloween. I'm going to be sipping on my iced tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you will also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are Mars Black, Burnt Umber, which I will call brown, Titanium White, Deep Yellow, and Chrome Orange. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like. I'm going to be using 3 brushes for my tools. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 6 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process, and of course you can switch those up as well. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same kind of paints and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all you're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to be doing for the first step is probably the easiest step of all time. We're going to be painting our background black. So I'm going to use my large brush, I'm going to be using black paint, and I'm going to just be painting it in. There is no special brush stroke. Black typically will give you a really nice, consistent type of paint, so you can get a nice coverage throughout this area. You could, I suppose, start with a canvas that is already black, because they do sell canvases that are black or white or the raw canvas. The only downfall to that is they are not created to be the final layer of the paint. So it, in essence, is just intended, if you get a black background or a black canvas, that's intended to just give you a dark base. It's not protected for, it's not protected as if it was acrylic paint. Acrylic paint, when it dries, will provide you with a lot of protection against UV, against water, against all kinds of elements, whereas just a primed canvas will not. The primed canvas is created or built to have the paint adhere to it. So it's got adhesion qualities that are useful, but it does not have that final layer of protection on it. So whatever color canvas you get, you're getting it specifically to be used as a background. So if you get a black canvas, you want to make sure that you paint the entire thing over with some kind of color, or you put a protective coat, a sealant or something on it afterwards. Otherwise it ages really funny. It'll get like dirty looking, and it won't provide you with a nice aging property like the acrylic paint will. And then once you got this entire canvas covered, I like to make these long sweeping motions to make sure I have a nice even coverage across the whole thing. And then we are going to be utilizing the same large brush for the next step. So once you get this done, you can just wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. Alright, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're going to be painting our mist or our fog behind the jack-o'-lantern. I do want to forewarn you before you start this step that you want to make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out your blow dryer and get it dry that way. So I'm going to use my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are brown, yellow, and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be doing it for most of the time with this circular type of scrubbing effect, so I can spread out my paint, especially my translucent colors, which are going to be yellow and brown, spread them out so you can see the black behind them, and they have this fogginess to them. I'm going to start with some yellow paint, and I'm going to be putting almost like the exterior edges of my fog on, and I'll work my way towards my middle, which is going to be my lighter area. So I have yellow on my brush right now, and I'm going to be scrubbing it on and getting it so it's nearly dry along the whole thing, and getting those edges to be really soft as they are intermingling with the black paint around the edges. And this way, when I go to build additional colors onto my fog, if I want lighter areas or darker areas, I've got this these nice soft edges that will allow for it to just look like it's just dissipating into the darkness, and it's going to make it look nice and natural. And I'm just kind of letting these edges kind of work their way into the black. I'm leaving some dark areas in between so it's not all just one color. I'm going to come over on this left hand side. I think I'm going to have this kind of going up into the upper region of my canvas, and I'm using a really firm brush, and you can see it's kind of just like splaying out and moving this paint around. But if you were using a softer brush, you may want to put a little bit of moisture in your paint, but I caution you on that aspect because the moisture in the paint, because I'm going to be adding this in layers, the moisture may end up lifting that paint right off of the canvas. So if you do decide to use a little bit of moisture in your brush, just be cautious with it, so that way it doesn't lift the paint right off for you, or just do it in layers. You can do one layer, let it dry, and then come back and do another layer. So that's looking like a pretty good footprint for me. I'm going to not wash my brush, and I'm picking up some brown paint so I can get some brown kind of intermingled with this as well. The brown for me is still on the translucent side, so this is just adding kind of like another layer and another color variation to the fog. So I don't just want it to be yellow, which sometimes looks green on top of the black. I do want to have these different shades of it going on throughout the area. So that's where I'm introducing the brown to it, but I am still keeping it on the translucent side where we can see some of that black behind it. And in a second here, I'm going to start adding a little bit of white to the equation, but right now just trying to get these edges nice and soft. So I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm picking up a little bit, just to give you a visual on what I mean by a little bit, just a little bit of brown and just a teeny tiny touch of white. The white will really easily overpower this and make it very light. So I just add it a little bit at a time. I'm going to start in my center area where I definitely want the lightest of the light to go. And then I'm just kind of working my way out from there. So again, I'm using this circular type of scumbling brush stroke of mine, and I'm going to get it to have these lighter, really translucent, cloudy type of places along the edges. I'm reloading with a little bit of brown and white, and I don't want to paint over everything that I've done. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of really starting in that middle and just kind of working my way out, making sure that as I do go outside of this central or this center area, that I don't have much paint on my brush, and I'm really just kind of using the remnants on my brush to give it this translucent, foggy smokiness to it. And this is one of those techniques that you might not get the first time around. You might do it and you're like, oh my God, there's too much white, or there's too much of this, or there's not enough of that. And if that happens and you're unable to get it to a point where you like, just try it again. You can always just repaint your canvas black and just start over and just work it until you feel like you've got your rhythm down and you've got the layers in there the way that you want to. As I'm in this center area, I know that I want this the lightest, so I am using a bit more of the white paint or the lightness in through here, but I'm not pushing really hard. So this way I'm giving myself these soft edges, but I'm maintaining the opacity of the paint so it looks a little bit lighter and brighter in that center area, because I know that I'm going to want this to be pretty darn light with that jack-o'-lantern in front of it. And if I scrub it too hard, I'll probably lift some of that right off of the canvas and it'll go back to that really dark color. So I'm trying to leave this center area a little bit lighter, giving myself some of this smokiness that's just coming out in through here. With the remnants on my brush, it's a great way to just get this cloudiness to just go even farther outside of that original footprint if you wanted it to. And then you just kind of let it dry for a minute, step back, take a look at it, see if you want to add more to it or back any of it off. You can always back some of it off with a little bit of the black paint if you wanted to. And then once you feel like you've got it in the region and in the brightness that you want, we will be using, let's see, what are we going to use for our next brush? Or I think we're going to use our medium brush for the next step. So I'm just going to kind of keep tweaking mine until I feel like I've got it as foggy and as mysterious as I want it. And then once I've got it into that realm, I will put my, this is a hard step to stop. I will put my large brush away. I'm going to take out my medium brush. I'm stalling because I keep wanting to paint, and then I'll get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for the next step is I'm doing the silhouette of my jack-o'-lantern. I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to be using just black paint. So you could, if you wanted to, you could certainly draw this out with a pencil or something to ensure that if you want to make changes, you have the ability to do so. But I'm going to just go with some black paint for this because jack-o'-lanterns can come in all different sizes and shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, because I'm going to be doing the outline first. So I want my tip of my brush to be kind of pointy. So what I like to do is I like to take my brush and spin it in the side of my palette in the paint, and that's going to give me a nice pointy edge. You could also add a touch of water to your paint, and that's going to give you a nice thin like ink consistency to your paint, and that'll allow you to do some nice skinny lines. So I'm going to have mine in this vicinity here. So the top of my pumpkin is going to be a little bit higher than halfway up my canvas. So if this is about the halfway mark, I'm going to go about an inch above that and maybe to the right a little bit. This is going to be where I have the top portion of my jack-o'-lantern. And then I'm going to have the bottom portion maybe somewhere in through this vicinity. So I've got it pretty darn wide. I'm going to just kind of give myself this outline in through here. This should give me a good shape to it. You could certainly make yours taller or wider or whatever you'd like to do is totally fine. So I've got this coming on in through here. Going to give myself maybe a little bit of a dip underneath here because I want to have a little bit of light showing through. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a dip like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my my stem on. So I'm going to just have mine kind of rickety and almost like broken. You could certainly have yours looking like it's got little twirlies to it if you wanted to. It's going to be totally up to you. Again, stems will come in all different sizes and shapes, and you can make yours into whatever you'd like it to look like. And then I'm going to outline my features. So I'm just going to do eyes and a mouth, but you could certainly do a nose. You could have yours in whatever way that you want. I'm going to keep the centers open, and I've got my jack-o'-lantern kind of looking in that direction a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of outline one eye in through here, and then I've got another one coming somewhere in this vicinity. And again, I'm leaving the inside portion of it open because that's where the light is going to be shining through later. So that's going to allow that to happen. And then I'm going to put an opening for my mouth. So I'm going to have just a little sliver of the pumpkin portion over here. That's going to be the edge of my mouth over there. And then this one I think I'm going to have it come in a little bit further than my eyes. So something like this. And then I'm just going to kind of give it a whole bunch of jaggedy marks for the top and the bottom. So just something like this, just going to do a whole bunch of these little like teethy things, and you can certainly make yours different than mine. You can have big ones and small ones and whatever works for you. I'm just going to kind of get this whole area covered in with these little pointy jaggedy teeth on that side, and then I'll do the same thing on the bottom side. And then once I feel like I've got enough of these jagged teeth marks, then I'm just going to color in the rest of the jack-o'-lantern with just black paint. And of course your mouth can be bigger than mine or smaller than mine. Maybe yours is more friendly looking than mine. Totally up to you. And then I'm just going to go ahead and color in the rest of this with black paint. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this wonderful jack-o'-lantern on here. You know, I was looking at different jack-o'-lantern faces when I was thinking of doing this painting, and oh my God, there's so many different expressions that you can put on these Halloween inspired gourds, and it's just really fun because they can be really happy, they can be, you know, just super expressive. So this one I thought was pretty cool. So we went with this one. And of course you can make yours into whatever you'd like to. And then we're going to switch to our small brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint ourselves some cat eyes. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to be using yellow, white, brown, and black. You could certainly use orange too, or if you had some green that you wanted to use, you could certainly whip that out. You can have them whatever color that you like to. I'm going to have mine some nice green or yellow eyes. So I'm going to have my cat emerging from the darkness over on this side. And it's predominantly, we're just going to be seeing the eyes. We'll see it. We'll put a little bit of fur in a little while on the side of the body, but it's predominantly going to be the eyes. So I'm going to have mine right about here. What I'm first going to do is I am going to put a tiny bit of yellow and white on my small brush to put the shape of the eyes in place. I'm utilizing white for the base coat with just a little bit of yellow, so I can get them to be very vibrant. Because we're working on a dark surface, if I was just to go in and put yellow on there, the yellow, as you saw when we were doing the fog, it's transparent, so it would take on some of that black from behind. So I want to kind of set the stage and have a light base for the eyes first. So I'm going to give you a couple of markers for the corners of the eyes, and then we'll connect it from there. So I'm going to come down, if this is about halfway down my canvas, I'm about, I would say 2 to 3 inches above that, and to the left, maybe about an inch, inch and a half. And then I'm going to come to the left of that, maybe about an inch and a half, and down maybe about a half of an inch. This is going to be the corners of this eye. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the bottom two, or connect both of them with an arcing motion, the bottom that way. And then I'll do the same thing with the top. So I'm going to take the top and I'm going to just go up just a little bit from that corner, and then just bring it back down in through this direction. And of course you can have yours shaped whatever way that you want. I'm going to go ahead and color in the entire eye except for where the pupil part would be. So I'm going to have my pupil somewhere in this area, and then I'm going to color in the rest of it with a very thin layer of that yellow and white. So light yellow is kind of the color that I'm utilizing for the base of this. And I'm just kind of getting all the way around, making sure I go from corner to corner of the eye and just giving myself a nice thin layer. Don't worry about it being perfect at this point. You're just going to get yourself a nice layer to use as the base coat. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the left of this corner. I would say maybe about 2 inches. This is about 1 inch, and then another inch from here, right about here. And then the other corner of the eye. My cat is kind of turned a little bit, so this eye to me would be a little bit bigger, but yours don't have to be of different size if you don't want to. And then I went up maybe about 1/2 inch, and then over about inch and a half. And then I'm going to go ahead and connect these two similarly to how the other ones were connected. So bringing this down in this direction in through here, and then I'll go ahead and connect the top two with a little bit of an arcing line as well. So this is kind of like the shape of almost like an almond of sorts. So something like that. I'm going to outline where I want my pupil to be. So I'm going to have my pupil a partial kind of oval toward at the top of the eye, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint this whole area in through here with my light yellow. So it's yellow and white on my brush at the same time. And again, just a thin layer in through here. You don't have to make it really thick. You want it to be able to dry pretty darn quickly for you. So while these are kind of drying of sorts, and they're kind of settling for us, I'm going to put a little bit of black and white on my brush at the same time. Not a lot, just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the information around the outside of the eyes. So I'm going to have a little bit of, I'll call it like skin type of fur underneath the eyes and through here. So I'm just really giving myself a little bit of a skirting type of motion underneath the eyes to provide a little bit of additional information to the viewer, just so that, you know, we see that there's maybe some sort of skin or fur or something along underneath it. And then I'm going to do the same thing above the eye, but I'm going to do longer kind of almost like eyelash whisker kind of things on the top. So something like this. You can use a little bit of water on your brush too. So right now I've got black, white, and a little bit of water on my brush. So this way I can give these really kind of fluid type of brush strokes, so I can have some length to them and give them a little bit of almost like singular type of pieces of fur throughout here. And if you do one that is a little bit too much, you can always dip your brush in black and just reverse it with a little bit of black. So I'm going to do the same thing on this eye in through here, but because it's turned towards the jack-o'-lantern, I'm going to do a little bit more over on this top left side of the eye, and I'm just going to kind of bring some of this out in through this direction. And then I don't want this to look odd that this eye doesn't have this, so I'm going to do the same thing over here as here, but I'm going to use a little bit more black on my brush. So I just picked up a touch more black on my brush, and I'm going to give myself some very faint little eyebrow whisker things up in through here. I'm going to do now I'm going to start working on my eyes because I feel like I've got the information around them pretty well. And of course, when we add the fur and the form to the rest of the face, you can modify those if you need to. I'm going to wash and dry my brush right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the colored part. So for me, the colored part on an eye is always going to be nice and dark at the top because there's a shadow from the eyelid, and then it gets brighter as it comes down towards the bottom. So I'm going to start with just brown paint on my brush, and I'm going to put this darkness up at the top of the eyes. You could utilize a little bit of black as well, but I think brown is going to bring it dark enough for me. So just brown is going at the top of these eyes. I am going to get rid of this little eye, this outline between the pupil and the top of the eye. So I'm putting black on my brush just to get rid of this tiny mark right in through here, because that was just a guide for us to use while we were outlining the eye. So I got rid of that. And then of course, if you wanted to or needed to add any more shadow up towards the top of that eye, you can certainly do so. And now I'm going to lighten up the bottom part of the eye. So I'm going to put a touch of, I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel. I'm picking up a touch of white paint. This is going to give me this bright part at the bottom of the eye. Then I wipe my brush off on my paper towel, and I'm picking up some yellow paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm in essence going to utilize this center area as the brightest, and then I will pull the darker yellow up in the outer regions of the eye. So again, I'm having it the brightest down here at the bottom, and then it's working its way up towards the darkness up on the left and the right side of that eye. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I have that white in through here. I'm going to pick up some yellow to get it to blend up into the dark part of the eye. And once you've got that part accomplished, it's all about kind of like fiddling with those colors. I am going to put a reflection in the eye in a second, but right now what I want to do is just kind of make sure that I've got these in the vicinity that I want, that I've got it light enough, so I just kind of fiddle with them a little bit until I've got it the way that I want, and make sure that my black on the pupil is big enough or dark enough or whatever you feel would need to be. I'm just kind of widening this one just a little bit, make sure that they look like they belong to the same cat here. And then once I've got this information in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that shiny part or the reflection onto the exterior of the eye. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to add a little bit of a sparkle mark, but I do like to sometimes put what I refer to as like a glaze on the eye first. So I'm going to put a little bit of white and black and water. This is going to give me kind of tell the viewer the shape of the eye. So I have a little bit of white, black, and water on my brush just to give myself like this hazy part to the eyeball itself. I'm not going to do it in a big area, just a little bit of an area that maybe crosses over that pupil just a little bit. I'll do it on the other eye as well, and then I'll put the shiny part or the shiny reflection right on top of it. So just a little part of like a little glazy area. I think this eye, the black is still a little bit wet on me, so I can utilize that in my process. So something like this. And then what I'll do is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of just white paint. So I wiped my brush off on my paper towel, and now I'm putting in my little sparkle reflection dot. So again, you can have yours as big or as small as you want, and giving it a similar one on the other side. And then I would just sit back and look at this from a distance and see if there's any additional areas that I would want to fiddle with. And usually the biggest part that I see that I want to fiddle with is the upper portion of the eye. So just to make sure that that kind of gets the darkness that it needs, so it looks nice and mysterious and kind of closed a little bit. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful cat eyes on here and you've manipulated them all you want, you can even put some little information in the corners if you want to. And then we're going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our jack-o'-lantern. So we're going to be doing the glow on the inside and the shadow and reflection that is cast upon the surface it is sitting on. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to be using black, orange, yellow, and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm first going to put the shadow of the jack-o'-lantern on the surface of the floor with the black, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the light and the glow within the jack-o'-lantern, and then we'll come and put the glow or the reflection on the surface. So I've got my medium brush. I'm going to start with just black paint, and how I'm going to do this is I want this glow or shadow to kind of get larger as it goes away from the jack-o'-lantern itself. And I don't need it to be like a mirror kind of image. So I'm really just going to kind of come up this left-hand side of the pumpkin and just kind of give myself a little bit of a line that comes out towards the left-hand side. I'm going to just kind of rub it in through here. You don't have to necessarily get rid of the entire silhouette of the bottom of the pumpkin. Really what I'm just looking to do is tell the viewer that there's some light behind it and that we've got this really cool shadow that's happening on the ground. We're gonna have a big light in through here, the reflection from the glow in through here. So what I'm gonna do on this left-hand side with my black paint is I'm just kind of bringing it in with a left to right type of brush stroke, and it disappears into the darkness at the bottom of my canvas. So really this is all about just kind of giving this little bit of an edge on the side of the shadow. So I've got this area in through here. I have just this little sliver which is gonna be the shadow in through here. So just kind of taking my brush, going a little bit left to right, just giving myself something similar, and then I'll just get it to kind of widen and disappear down at the bottom of my canvas. So maybe a little bit in through here too. I'm gonna have a little light spot coming underneath the jack-o'-lantern itself, but I think I want a little darkness in through here as well. And of course, if you do something and you're like, oh, that was just too much, then don't worry, we've got the glow that's going to come on top of it, and you'll be able to disguise it that way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my medium brush to get my fire or glow from within the jack-o'-lantern. So I just washed it, I'm drying it, and how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with my yellow paint, and I'm using yellow as my translucent bright highlight color throughout this. So I'm going to actually just kind of rub it in through the eyes and let it illuminate the side of the face, something like that. I'm going to do the same thing on this eye. So I've got yellow and I'm just letting it illuminate the side. If you go outside of the pumpkin as well, that's totally fine. I'm going to do the whole mouth area as well. And again, my paint is translucent. So if yours is not translucent, then you will want to either add a liquid medium to it or add water to it to allow it to be translucent, so you can get it to have that glow around the edges of the pumpkin itself, because we want to be able to see the pumpkin. You don't want to cover it all up. And then I'm just kind of bringing this all the way over to the edges, something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of that in through the floor part in through here. So it looks like we've got a little bit of that that same glow color maybe shining through the back of the pumpkin or something. I don't know, something where it's just going to give us the illusion of light all around this really cool jack-o'-lantern. I'm going to put some down here in the reflection as well. So whatever you do up top, you want to just kind of emulate down at the bottom. I'm going to put maybe some going in through here, just kind of crossing over those black areas. And you don't have to do a whole heck of a lot because it's going to be nice and see-through. Maybe a little bit more over in through here as well. If you want it anywhere else, feel free to do so. Then I'm not going to wash my brush, just going to wipe it off on my paper towel, and I'm picking up some orange paint. And the orange I'm going to have as almost like a halo around what would be the center fire part. So I've got orange on my brush, and how I'm going to do this is I'm going to go in towards these, like on the exterior area of the openings. So I've got orange on my brush, and then what I can do is I can wipe it off because I want it to kind of blend in with this yellow. So I wiped it off a little bit, and then I'm just kind of rubbing it in so it gives me this gradient type of look from the dark to the light. And I'll do that for all of these openings. So I'm going to put a little bit of orange around the edges and then get it to blend in a little bit with the yellow. And you might find after, when you do this, that you might want a couple of different layers so it gets brighter and brighter, but you'll see what after we put the white on, it will get even brighter. I am also going to put a little bit of this orange glow on the pumpkin, similar to what I did with the yellow, and I'm going to get it to kind of come out this right hand side. So I'm going to just kind of rub this in and then just kind of pull it out along the edge. I like to get mine to kind of dissipate so it's not a firm line. So I just make sure that I've got that to just kind of do what I want it to. I'm going to pick up a little bit more orange. I'm going to go ahead and get these edges down inside here to blend in with the yellow. So just a little bit around the edges, and then just get it to blend into that yellow area. I'm going to put some white and yellow and get this in a minute and get it to get even brighter, but right now this is just how I'm starting it. So I feel like the flames or the glow from inside this really cool thing is nice and vibrant. Putting a little bit more orange over in through here. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing down in my reflection. So I'm going to put some orange in through here, more along the edges, similar to what I did up top. And again, there's no rules here. We're not making it look like a photograph or anything like that. So if yours doesn't turn out exactly as mine, it's quite all right. Just kind of rubbing this in here. And I don't know if you can see this, but I wipe my brush off on my paper towel quite frequently just so I can control the amount of paint that is on my surface. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush because I really want the white area to be white and clean to start. So I just washed and dried my brush. I'm picking up a little bit of white paint, and I'm going to concentrate my white in the center of my jack-o'-lantern. So I just put a little bit of white. I'm going to put it in these little corners in through here. And then what I'll do is I want to have it with soft edges, like kind of blending into the yellow, but I will get it to blend in 1 second. Just want to kind of get the vibrant areas on to start, and then I'll get it to blend out into my yellow area. And then if I need, which I probably will get it to get a little bit more vibrant with that yellow in a minute. But now as it's drying, I'm going to go ahead and rub it out into that yellow. And if you go outside of the openings, that's okay too. You can always come back and add any more black or anything else that you need to make any corrections. So I'm just kind of rubbing out that white so I have that vibrant area in the middle. And now I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow on my brush. I didn't wash it. So this is going to, with that white, it's going to give me kind of another level of brightness. And I just kind of keep, when I'm doing these type of processes where especially with like a flame, I love to layer these thin translucent layers on, because every time I add another layer, it looks more realistic to me. So I just am adding more yellow at this point. I might even come back and add a little bit more orange in a minute, but right now just kind of getting some of this yellow to look a little bit more vibrant. I'm going to do the same thing down in the reflection. So I need to add that lightness or brightness from the white down in the reflection. So just getting this to kind of translate as the brightness in the middle. I'm adding a bit of white paint on my brush so I can get this lightness to reflect down into the surface or the floor area down in through here. And I'm going to approach it the same way that I did up top. So I have the white on my brush. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow to make sure that that yellow is vibrant enough. And then I'll do the same thing with the orange as well. So again, you can certainly make this as vibrant as you want. I think I'm going to stick a little bit of vibrancy underneath here, as if we're seeing a little bit of light coming from underneath this pumpkin, which I think adds a really cool illusion. Maybe a little bit more over in through here. I think I'm going to put a little more orange over on this side as well. So as you're going through this process, you might find that, the orange is really speaking to you. So if it is, pick up some more orange. And I want some more orange in my reflection down in through here. And at any time you feel like you need to wash your brush, feel free to do so. I just washed my brush because I felt it was getting a little overloaded with the different colors of paint on this reflection. Know that it's a reflection, so it doesn't have to be like a mirror image. You can get the colors to be skewed a little bit and as it gets bigger and farther away from the object, it can get wider. So just know that, you know, when you're doing something like this, it doesn't have to be a perfect rendition, especially when you're looking down at that reflection or a shadow, because the elements around it can certainly skew it into a much different type of appearance. And if like you're down here and you want that orange to be a little bit more vibrant, like I feel like I want it to be more vibrant maybe on the edges of the teeth, so I'm gonna just kind of take my orange and put it really kind of thick around these edges. That's gonna give me a little bit more pop of this fire type of feel to it. And of course you can make yours as bright or as dark as you want. I feel like I want a little bit more on these edges and through here. So again, I just picked up a little bit more orange and I'm making it more vibrant and more alive with the intensity of that particular color. And you can do the same thing in through here if you wanted to. This also makes it look a little bit more three-dimensional, like we're seeing the thickness of that particular pumpkin. So you can certainly have fun with this all you want. I'm thinking that that's looking pretty good. And again, if you wanted to, you could certainly bring back a little bit more black onto your actual gourd itself. If you wanted a little highlight on here, if you wanted a little, I just picked up a little bit of white, if you wanted a little bit more vibrancy on the edge to make that pumpkin pop out, tweak it all you want. And then when you feel that you've got it in the intensity that you want, we're actually going to be using our large brush for the next step. I'm just amping up my little white here a bit more so it looks a little bit more glowing in the center of this cool Halloween style decoration. And then I'm going to put this medium brush away. I'm going to take out my large brush in preparation for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our cat. So I'm going to use my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are black, orange, and maybe a tiny bit of white. So really what I'm looking to do is just kind of give the implication or the impression that this is a cat that's fully kind of emerging from the darkness. And right now we have some fog that's kind of in front of the face, but I want to kind of give a little bit of a silhouette on the side. So I'm going to use my brush to give myself a little bit of edge to the cat. Then we'll use a little orange to give a little tiny bit of fur, and very little bit is what we're going to do on this step. So I'm going to take my big bristle brush. I'm going to put a tiny bit of black paint on my brush. This is definitely a less is more kind of step. The less you do, the more successful you'll be. And I'm just going to kind of wipe it off on my paper towel. In my head, I'm going to have my cat's head kind of in through here. And then I'm just going to kind of get it to merge into what would be a leg. So I'm just going to really use just a tiny bit of paint on the edge of my brush just to give myself a little silhouette of the side of the cat's head. I'm thinking the head comes down to about here, so that's where I would just kind of start to bring out the edge of what would be maybe a leg, and then I'm just going to, it disappears into the darkness. I really don't have to do much. And then what I'm going to do, just make sure it kind of blends into whatever that fog might have been, so it looks like it's the cat and not the fog, so something like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a teeny tiny, without washing my brush, a teeny tiny bit of my orange paint, and I'm going to give the implication of an ear and the maybe a little glow on the side of the cat. So a little bit of black, a little bit of my orange. I'm going to have my ear kind of somewhere up and through here. So if this is your eye, you can kind of go up from the center of your eye. And really, I'm just kind of giving myself a little bit like that. I'm going to pick up a little bit more black paint just to get this to kind of disappear in the fog. Again, just something really subtle to give that edge of the of the head. So if, you know, so you just have an edge to your head and it would be the ear. So something like that. And of course you can modify yours all you want. Then I'm going to pick up, without washing my brush, just a itty tiny bit of white paint. Like, I want so little paint. I just want to maybe give some sort of information on the bridge of the nose. So teeny tiny bit, just kind of, maybe my nose is in through here. Maybe I have a little bit of fur that's being illuminated underneath those eyes. Really nothing much at all. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of orange paint. So I didn't wash it again, and I'm just going to give myself, again, just these little implications of highlighted a little bit of fur, maybe on that leg as it's coming down. So again, not much. I just want to give that information that maybe whatever this little animal is being illuminated by that jack-o'-lantern. And that's all I'm going to do. So if you wanted to do more, you certainly could. Feel free to do as much as you want, but that's all I'm going to do. And then we are going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually use my small brush. I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm going bottom left on this one with orange paint. So I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with the first name or with the date or with a symbol. Whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a spooky Halloween style image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.